In a world of increasing mental health challenges, psychology and faith can both provide tools for healing and wellness. This is the idea behind Journey on My Mind. Each episode, our panel of pastors and therapists sit down together to share their experiences and insights on the modern world's mental health issues: depression, loneliness, aging, addiction, and so much more. Join us now as we explore what it means to thrive at the complex intersection of spirit and psychology.
Edwin, are you past 103.5 fever?
I am past 100.
Okay, good.
Good.
Is that a rock station?
It's my favorite radio station, 103.5 temp. Yeah.
That's 103.5 temp. That's hilarious, though. Coming from
That
an old
would be a
radio
great
DJ,
name for
that
it,
could.
yeah.
Yeah. 103.5, the temp.
Yeah.
The temp.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to Journey on My Mind, where we're discussing
Wow, that
good
was
radio
just a
stations.
Slide right in there.
And apparently there's one called 103.5 temp, referring to the temperature of which our producer, Edwin,
His
struggled-
head was cooking at
last
last week.
Yes. So thus
And we'll
we,
see
thus we
long-term
did not record
damage
last
or not.
week because no one wanted to be in a small room with somebody with 103.5 temperature.
I mean, I was cool.
And we are following up a little bit of our conversation the last time around this idea of deconstruction. And with that in mind, have either of you ever worked construction?
Construction.
Yeah,
Deconstruction.
no,
That's
I'm curious. Do you ever work on a construction site?
Have you met me?
Yes, I have. I forget.
Like no one would ever ask me that question.
Lift
No,
things. No, neither
No,
of you.
I don't think I've ever worked a construction job.
So what's the worst job you've ever had?
Oh, golly, where to begin?
Because I worked construction for a summer. We
Yeah.
built 7-Elevens in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I never did that.
Wow, that sounds
And
like
I was-
a personal kind of hell.
It was.
Yeah.
I was the guy that supplied the bricks to the bricklayers.
Oh,
I was never in better shape in my entire
I'll
life.
bet.
After
You were
a
probably
summer.
cut, man.
It was a job,
I'll
and
bet.
then you got to carry bricks up onto scaffolding, and then mud, and then when they get higher and higher, it just gets. You then use these little pulleys with buckets full of stuff.
I've seen some of the dudes that. Have you ever
Oh.
seen the guys that do that? Like there's like YouTube videos, and literally it's this seamless.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Oh,
they're
right.
throwing the bricks up and
Yep.
throwing the mud. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah, that's
crazy.
It is.
Dude.
You learn how to do
I'll
it.
bet.
It is. But it was a miserable, hot, dumb job.
Okay. Yeah.
But the beauty of it is that a guy that was contracting all these places
yeah.
would show up every day and pay us with cash at the end of the day.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's not a bad deal.
Yeah, I'm sure that got taken out of my check somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So that was my worst job.
Worst job. Mm-hmm. I think I've shared mine. I think mine was probably but worse. It was the hardest maybe, and it's a random Midwest detasseling corn.
Oh yeah.
Right? I think
did-
we've talked about that before. But
yeah, that sucks.
it's just
It's
just labor.
Mine's a toss up between this and cleaning a bakery. Have you ever cleaned a bakery?
Nope, can't say that.
Don't
I
do
have.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some.
See, I was
to make the
I was
donuts.
thinking about quitting the whole psychology thing and cleaning bakeries. So
Yeah.
you talked me out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Don't do it.
That was quick.
Everything.
You didn't. I mean,
Everything is sticky
Yeah.
in a bakery.
Changed my mind.
Kevin's
This was
super convincing.
Oh my gosh, that was awful.
Oh, yeah.
And they would leave, like they would cook or they would make the donuts or whatever they made in the morning, like from 4 until 8, and I couldn't get there until 4 in the afternoon, and everything was just crusted.
dried
Yeah,
and-
dried and crusted on. It was.
Yeah.
It was okay. So it's a toss up between those two for me.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah.
And the only job you've ever had is this.
Ish. But yeah, I mean, in grad school, I worked at different radio stations. I guess
But that'd
probably
be more
worked at
fun than
5 or
this.
6. It was more fun than cleaning a bakery. I did have one station that I had to work 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Oh man.
And that was not fun.
I've worked nights before.
Yeah. But besides that, not really.
Huh.
Not a lot of
Yeah.
bad jobs.
Good for you.
I wish I had a really good bad job for you.
but
I
you don't,
Mm-mm.
right? Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I just was curious, guys.
Yeah.
I was just
See,
curious.
I've got some factory stories and there's
Curiosity.
a bunch, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Oh, you were curious.
Yeah, I was.
That's a good
curious.
lead,
I
Kev.
just thought I'd be curious about your previous employment.
Yeah.
So how does curiosity work for you?
Well, let's define it because
Okay.
curiosity is
The topic of the day.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I would say curiosity simply is where you have a desire to learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be about a topic you already know a lot about, or it could be something brand new. But when it's this sort of a desire for it, it's not just I've got to because I've got to pass a test, or I've got to do it because I need it for this task. It's I desire this information or knowledge or insight. So that, I think, in a real simple way is curiosity.
Yeah.
And I was thinking on the way here, what have I been curious about lately? And actually I thought of a lot of things. And one of them is, tell me, you guys might not feel this, but I have never been the guy to be like, the world's worse than it's ever been and kids are more disrespectful. I don't believe any of that's true.
Yeah.
But I have felt like for the last few years, kind of COVID and beyond, like the world's off its axis. Does it feel like that?
Yeah.
I mean, like that everything feels weird.
Something feels off.
I
feel off. Yeah.
Everything feels
tilted
off.
a little bit. Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, I kind of get it. It's sort of like, the aftermath of a big global trauma. And then I also get that there are economic issues and there are certainly political issues and divides. And but I don't, it's hard for me to, like, what's going on here? People just are behaving
badly
and differently. In all kinds of realms. I could give you lots of examples of that, but it's just strange. So I've been curious about that. I don't think I fully get it.
Yeah. I think whatever COVID did to the physical makeup of the world, it also did something psychologically to the world.
Yeah.
In such a way that it's made the dividing things deeper and wider. And what I mean by that is people's opinions, people's way they responded to it. I think it's made people more angry. So yeah, I'd say it's a little off.
Yeah. Do you feel it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the ways that I've seen it, and I was curious, is since the pandemic, and just kind of in the nature of our roles. Pre-pandemic, there was a lot of, there's a lot of need and a lot of people seeking like therapy and counseling. But post, it's been like floodgates. I mean, I understand, I think, the why that would be, but I'm curious about, I think the underneath, because we all have that initial why, but like what was preventing people from doing that before, and now why is all of this, like what happened in that time that pushed people that direction? Maybe it's the chaos. So yeah.
I know it just feels different. And I think what I don't want to say appreciate, but I have to allow is, rather than I feel like I've got that all figured out, because I don't, and I've thought about it a lot, is like, it just makes me go like, all right, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And what could I be open to as far as, because if you ask people in different realms about the economic situation, political, there are people that have all these sort of, opinions and very rigid beliefs about things.
Yeah.
I just don't think we know that much.
You mean to be that rigid?
Yeah.
Like how do we
Yeah.
That's certain.
Yeah, that's certain.
Yeah.
There is a screenwriter named William Goldman who has won he's passed away, but he won 2 Oscars, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, and he's written, so he wrote The Princess Bride. He wrote the book and the movie. He's written, and his famous line is, "Nobody knows anything," right?
Yeah.
It's like people have all this advice about like, here's how you get your screenplay, into a major film. Here's how you write the structure. Here's how, and he's like, nobody
knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I apply that to like all kinds of parts of life. I'm like,
it's a perfect measure.
Yeah. Right. It's the conspiracy theories. I'm curious about how people get sucked into that. It's the QAnon thing, and I'm curious what it is in people's makeup or history.
Let's do a whole have we done that topic? Okay,
Nope,
so
not at all.
In my last book, I wrote a whole chapter.
I know you did.
It's super fascinating, and I've gotten asked to speak at some universities, and it's usually on that topic.
Okay,
that's fun.
So
we should do a whole show on that one. Yeah.
We'll do
super
that.
fascinating.
Yeah, it is. But I'm curious enough to, I want to ask questions. I don't really want to debate with them. I just want to ask questions like, how did you get here to this place where you believe that you need to show up outside of a pizza place with a gun because you think a bunch of people are in the basement molesting children, and the place doesn't even have a basement.
Right.
I mean, anyway, I'm curious
the
about
guy-
that. Makes me very curious.
Yeah.
The guy who did that
Yeah.
was, by all accounts, like good citizen,
Yeah.
good family man, good dad. I mean,
Yep.
it was not like we wouldn't be like, that's a dangerous dude right there.
No.
It was like-
He was trying to do the right thing.
He'd done missions trips.
Oh, yeah.
He was a good dad to his kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Well,
It
what's fascinating about that too is it moves from like people I think get pulled into those things because of curiosity,
Yeah.
right?
True.
But then they somehow like wrap themselves around something with such certainty.
I think that's it, though. I don't think it is driven by curiosity.
Okay.
I think it's driven by the opposite of curiosity.
Okay. All right.
And I might be wrong on this, but I think that's really the heart of.
So I'm
kind of where we're
opposite. Is kind of the idea,
going. Kind of like I have,
which is okay.
in times when people feel afraid for whatever reason, economically, politically, situation in the world, they desire certainty. They desire
Yeah.
things to be known, and it's sort of like, tell me what's true,
Yes.
and then I'll either do that or think that, and I'll be
Yeah.
good. I'll be
Yeah.
safe. And so
Yeah.
it makes them really vulnerable to authoritarian leaders.
Right.
It makes them vulnerable also to this idea that everybody else is a sheep who doesn't get it, but I have done my research and I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm privy to certain, so it's actually a desire for certainty rather than a
Curiosity. That's
about
fascinating.
What might be, and how could I entertain multiple possibilities of, and multiple theories,
Yeah.
which is really the heart of curiosity.
Yeah.
It's right. Like, rather than I'm getting sort of rigidly dialed into this particular belief
Yeah.
about this conspiracy
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. That makes
Right. So
that makes
curiosity,
sense.
curiosity means more than just wondering something, or
Yeah. It's a desire to learn.
it's a desire to learn. So does curiosity naturally prompt something in us? Does it prompt us to investigate? Does it prompt us?
It should.
It should.
Yeah, and it typically does, depending on the personality, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that curiosity has all kinds of benefits. Like, when people are curious, they actually are better students. The
Makes sense.
the personality trait that predicts how good a student is called conscientiousness, and that's like the kid who sits down and does his homework and meets the deadlines, and and some of you may or may not have been that kid, right?
I've never heard of that, but
And that's a conscientious kid.
Yeah.
Curiosity is on par with that in terms of learning and academic achievement. And so it promotes academic achievement, learning.
Yeah.
When people are older, it actually helps people be more cognitively sharp and physically have greater well-being.
Right.
Has physical implications.
You said, how did you say that before? So like what you just said about that type of person.
Yeah. The conscientious.
Conscience. Yeah. Well, now keep going. Sorry, I had a thought. I'll come back to it.
Yeah. So they're conscientious learners tend to be academically good students, but curious students are on par with.
So that was my question then. So those are two different types of learners, or could they be the
same? They could overlap.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
They could be the same.
Got it.
But those are
Not mutually exclusive.
personal traits.
Okay.
So there's lots of benefits to it.
Yeah.
But here's why I think this topic's really great for us.
Yeah.
Because I think individually we have the benefit of becoming more curious. But I also think the church, and not just Journey, but the church
Ecumenically,
broader, could really
Use
be
some
healthier.
curiosity.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Be healthier and more vibrant if they were truly curious. And think about what we were talking about earlier. I think in uncertain times, it sort of draws a certain need for certainty and a need for kind of locking down and authoritarian sort of, like, just tell me what's right and then I'll
do
no
that.
sense of like,
And most churches operate in that
way.
Right.
In that way.
right. And it eliminates any sense of mystery or any sense of like sort of exploration or openness or things like that.
Wow. Yeah.
And we all grew up in the church, and the thing that I've realized is in the past, all of us here, but also in the church,
Edwin too,
yeah, have really evaluated sermons based on how much in line they are with what we already believe.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
That was a good sermon. And we might say, oh, I didn't know that there was 3 Greek words that mean love, or whatever it might, something like that.
Right.
You might be a little, oh, I learned a little nugget of something, but it's all within the same framework.
Yeah.
And it really reinforced this idea of there's a body of knowledge you must know. And it's just a matter of knowing that body of knowledge.
Yeah.
And then within that, things have to fit. So then sermons all are about whether or not
they fit.
They fit that.
What's interesting, I think in my growing up, I experienced, I don't know if this makes it, but a bounded curiosity. Like I could be curious, but only within the bounds of what was framed up for what was appropriate or right or good theology. Because I was not the conscientious student. I was the curious kid, right? So, and I did okay, like academically. But I felt like I was curious everywhere, and I wanted to ask questions and be more curious in my church community. But I had so much fear because as soon as I got curious, it was like a judgment would come down.
Yeah,
so you could be curious within the box.
Be curious within this box, but don't even press that edge.
Don't be curious outside.
Don't be curious outside of it. Yeah.
I think by design, systematic theology eliminates curiosity.
That's it.
When I went to seminary,
they
had us read systematic theologies from Calvin to Erickson to. It was like, oh my gosh, people
riveting,
and it was riveting. If you insomnia, man, that's the thing to read. But with the intent of the school I went to was, hey, see, there's a whole bunch of these.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of systematic theologies, and you got to kind of pick one and go with it, or not. Or whereas a lot of seminaries just say, this is our systematic theology. Yes. Here's the book. Read the book. This is what
align
we believe.
With this.
Right. This is, and we need you to.
Yeah.
The school I went to actually did prompt us to be more curious about it. I did leave going, I think systematic theology is from the enemy.
Wow.
And
that's a strong statement.
I believe that.
Yeah.
It is a strong statement. It got me in a lot of trouble. Still gets me in trouble periodically.
I was going to say.
Because what we end up doing is we read the Bible trying to make it fit into our systematic theology. Kind of what you were just saying a minute ago. If you were taught Reformed theology or Catholic theology or Methodist theology or Wesleyan, whatever it may be, you have certain tenets that you go, oh, well, see, this verse doesn't quite fit into my understanding of election and free will. So I have to figure out how to make that verse fit in. So the curiosity has very little, it's more of, I need to be certain that I'm right. And that's the opposite of curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. It's taking that verse and making
it
sort of wedging it into this system rather than going, wow, that's making my head spin a little bit.
Is it possible that there might be some paradoxes in Scripture and that somehow we can't reconcile them in our minds?
Yeah.
And we don't have a breadth and a width big enough to understand the fullness of God? Is that possible? I think it is.
Yeah.
But systematic
not only possible,
theology,
I think it's reality.
I do too.
Right? Yeah.
And I think systematic theology steals that from us.
It's interesting. I think the
I
Bible
mean that in the nicest possible way.
Yeah. I think the Bible itself makes the point you're making, and I might be wrong. And
no, I agree.
And
I think
theologians
it does.
And here's the point: like Paul says, now we see through a glass dimly, or a mirror darkly, or whatever the translation is.
Yeah.
And we don't see it clearly. We kind of see the sketch. We see the outline.
We get an idea.
And he's the guy that wrote the majority of the New Testament. Right. He wrote, and he's saying, right now we have a sketch of this, and we have the general outline.
Right.
But we don't see
a little blurry.
Right.
Yeah.
And
still in the shadow.
That's right.
A little bit.
And so that seems to thwart this idea of and I know some people have built their whole career on systematic theology.
For sure. And I know a bunch of people.
Well, what's funny is
my life is littered with people like that.
Well, one of my curiosity, like an OG curiosity for me, happened when I was in Bible college, and it was like, I had it'd be two competing ideas, but guys that had PhD on their name,
Yeah.
and it's like, wait a minute, these are both real smart guys
Yeah.
who have
Right.
totally opposite
Yeah.
viewpoints. So that made me go, what? It was scary to me to just fully align then
with one or the
one
other
ideology in that, and so.
And they both make good points.
They do.
Got great
and they're
arguments.
both wrong about things and
that
right
was-
about things.
That
and-
was beautiful about the school I went to. Was this is what they would say about graduates of Trinity,
okay.
where I went to school, is like, if you want to know anything about anything, they'll be able to tell you anything about anything.
Yeah.
But if you want to know what they believe, they have no clue.
Okay. Yeah.
Really?
That's funny.
Because we all walked away going, I wonder what I believe about that now.
Yeah.
Because we would basically say, is it on the test? Okay, I'll learn it, and it'll be on the test. And do you believe it? I'm not sure.
I got the answer right on the test, though.
Whereas if you went to a guy that went to Dallas Theological Seminary, they'd tell you exactly what they believe.
Well, that's the thing. They would, like, even in our school, they would you'd be introduced to some of these other ideas, but it was always like, they're wrong. Like, this is the right one. You know,
that was not part of,
which is beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, if you're going to be a pastor and people go, hey, I'd like some certainty.
Yeah, it's
Well, I can give you some options.
yeah. Got some thoughts.
And I could live in those options, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
For sure. And bringing it back to the psychology of it. That's making the point.
Yeah.
And this sounds cynical, but I think it's true. At its heart, this need for things to be systematic and absolutely knowable in all ways comes from fear. It doesn't look like it does. It's all dressed up in intellectualized language.
Yeah.
But what drives the need to even create that is, if we do this, then we will be certain and we will know all things. And then we'll be good.
Yeah.
Because then we'll know what to believe and what to do, and you do X and Y and all is well.
Yep.
And it is very, for many of us, most of us, unsettling to say, we've got the sketch, we know the core, but there are parts of it that there's a mystery about it.
Yeah. And there should be.
Well, and it's so, I just keep saying it, like, it's such a dichotomy that we're such curious people, but yet we want certainty so deeply.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this battle that wages at times.
Well, what if the certainty is actually in the person behind the mystery rather than in the...
You mean in the personhood of God?
Yeah.
As opposed to the belief structure?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I'm more curious about that. I'm like, the idea that Jesus was fully God and fully man and walked this planet, allowed himself to be crucified by his creators, people he created, still blows my mind. Yeah. Comes back to life. We believe some interesting things.
It's weird.
We believe some, but behind that is the character of God. Behind that is the I love you enough to do this.
Yeah.
I love you enough to redeem you. I love you enough to do this. So no matter how I kind of sort out all the other pieces, if I can keep coming back to this idea that God moved toward me, God took on flesh, dwelt among us, and died for us, the rest of it kind of works itself out.
Yeah. Well, and I think we get that in the greatest commandment. Love God, love people.
Right.
All the law and the prophets hang on these two things.
Right.
So we make such a big deal about all this other nonsense. And he's like, I've actually given you the key here to what this looks like.
Yeah.
So, but
if you want the key.
Yeah,
if you want
the key.
You want to be certain.
Yeah.
This is it.
So the faith piece goes into the person behind it. And the older I get and the more books I read and the more that I listen to podcasts and the more that I've just come to this conclusion. I'm really curious about how to live this out, more so than I am about trying to figure out the theology behind it.
By that, do you mean rather than having the perfect answer?
Yeah.
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 So that was actually a lead to my. This is.
Oh,
the question
I leaped.
No, this is perfect.
Okay.
Answer honestly.
Okay.
Oh, shoot.
Oh,
Sorry, Sam.
oh no, we'll know if
By
you're
the way,
lying.
Sam does
If I
nothing.
start twitching,
Dang.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sam does nothing but lie on the
Sam,
podcast. Every
Sam,
word.
Answer this as best you can.
Yeah.
All right. Do you feel like you know and are certain of less now than you were 20 years ago?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah,
We'd
sure.
all say the same thing.
Yeah.
So I knew that was the answer, but here's
It's
the
a fair question. It's a great question.
But why?
Hmm.
Because I think we'd all say the exact same thing.
I think because what I was certain of isn't
I'm
certain.
not certain anymore.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't. It
Or it
proved
played out wrong.
Right.
It proved
itself
to not be reliable.
Yeah,
or,
it proved itself wrong. It proved some
or
of the things.
experienced differently.
Mhm.
And I know that you can't always just trust, every experience, but yeah, there's a lot of different angles, I think, where those things are reshaped or move away from certainty and back into a place of, well, maybe I don't know.
And some of the things I was taught were just wrong. Some of the things that other people were certain of that I inherited, I've taken them apart, looked at them, and said, good intentions, just not true. I also think grace has changed me dramatically. Understanding how grace applies to me. How much I've been wrong, how much I've done poorly, how much God has extended to me, how much forgiveness I get from other people has moved me to a place of, some of the stuff that I worried about when I was younger just was wasted energy and time.
Those are good answers.
Yeah.
The pushback on it, not from me, but from someone else, might be, to your point and to that last point, well, if the life of faith has to be grounded in something, and if you're just going based on your experiences,
Yeah. Like willy-nilly,
it's
just
just
what
willy-nilly,
you feel. Or
I believe this, but then this situation happened, and then I'm not sure that God acts this way, then it puts you in a really vulnerable spot.
Sure.
How do you respond to this idea that you shouldn't trust those or allow those kinds of life experiences or
To change you?
to change you?
Well, one thing that's
It's a good question, actually.
been helpful is, even just in the last few months, is when we've kind of framed up the idea of like beliefs, or convictions, beliefs, and opinions, and that, as far as just to like where to set some of those things, like, opinions are something we all have a whole lot of, right?
Especially,
and then we don't hold
now.
them. And beliefs are, that kind of that next level of, where we feel strongly about that, and there's something to that, convictions being that we would die for, kind of thing. And so what I've seen happen as I've gotten curious is maybe things don't get thrown out completely, but they move positions. Again, growing up Church of Christ, I've shared this baptism, was magic in the water. Like that's the moment you're saved. I've moved from that, which at one point that would have been a conviction in my life, to where, I would say now it's moved to the opinion, or like, some people feel that. I don't have a lot of energy around that, but it was the main theological piece that everything was built on in how I grew up. So
in your tradition.
Yeah, in our tradition. So that's an example of one that's moved for me from conviction to doesn't have power anymore in that,
Good.
Yeah.
So
That's a good one.
Would you add?
Well, see, I've always kind of held certain things really loose. Like baptism, I've held really loose. I've held a lot of things looser than most pastors would.
yeah.
One of the things that changed probably in the last 5 years for me is how the church should engage with the LGBTQ community. And, kind of was sat on that fence of don't ask, don't tell with the military, right? Anymore, part of what moved a position for me was I've just gotten to know a bunch of people that live in that community, and they have real families, they have real life, they have all of those things. And you say, well, what about the experience? I said, I still believe that sex outside of marriage is wrong. No matter how you slice it, or I think Scripture is real clear on that. I've never moved off of that. I haven't met a lot of people in my life that that's probably the wrong way to say this. I've met a lot of people in my life that have had sex outside of marriage.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the vast majority of the people I know.
Probably.
Yeah, I'd say.
Well,
be my guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And it heterosexual, homosexual,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
The research on it says it's the majority of people.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. People are living together. People are doing all kinds of stuff. And somehow the church kind of just honed in on one thing
Yeah.
and said, that's the one we reject. We don't just reject the act, we
Yeah.
reject the people as well. And this is where I've moved my position is I just can't find myself rejecting people
Absolutely.
anymore.
To allow yourself to be more open to other ways of thinking about
Right.
something that you thought you had a handle on before.
And then to create a barrier to the church and to Jesus
Yeah.
because of my people. How many people do you counsel, Sam, that
Yeah.
live together before they get married?
Probably about 80% would be my guess.
Right.
Like just
and
being
when we say live together, what are
Yeah.
we saying?
that they are they're having sex,
they're sharing a
they're
bed.
sharing everything. Yeah. They are, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not a
Right.
but we've given it a nice name. We've
Right.
said, oh, they're cohabitating.
Yeah.
They're whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And the church, when I was in high school in the 70s,
Yeah.
that was like you can't do that.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Yep.
That is forbidden. Right.
Yep.
Something changed.
Yeah.
Along the line.
No, it's been like that.
Yeah.
It has.
I know.
People just were lying about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's
yes. And that's it was hidden.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious. Do people even realize how much the culture has shifted and how much it hasn't? The idea. I know a bunch of people in one of my first. It was eye opening to me. The first church I was at. Sex outside of marriage to that group of people was like nothing.
Yeah.
It was like it didn't matter. They talked about having to get married. All the people I met were like, yeah, we had to get married.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, we were all like, we were pregnant. Like they've all been married, and I'm like, and in the early 80s,
Yeah.
this was a thing. But this church somehow just kind of looked at sex as being,
It wasn't the core.
everybody does it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is wrong with you? You're a prude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I gotta, did my experience then make me get curious? Yes.
Yeah.
And it asked me a different question. Okay, what's my conviction about this?
Yeah.
And does it preclude people from being engaged in the church? Does it preclude people from being engaged with Jesus? Does it preclude people from participating in the church? What does it do?
Yeah. Well, we were always told, yes, it does.
Yeah, but
and the answer is
so then no one told us.
Yeah.
So no one said anything. So what the lack of curiosity in that arena does is it puts people in the dark. It makes them shamed. And rather than go, okay, there's really good reasons why God put it this way. Let's talk about those.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I look at those things like this is God's best, right? This is His hope. This was,
but He accommodates.
But just because we don't always, and I miss His best all the time. But
right.
I like to choose your missing of the best as the one that
so I
need
can sit
to
in judgment of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm sorry. That's one of
No.
my.
No, it's good. But it's what led to that is just seeing that you were at one place and then life experiences made you have to
Re-examine
You
that.
either were going to get more rigid or you're going to examine that.
Right.
And I'll give you an example that comes to my mind. And this is from somebody that is a preacher, pastor, good man, doesn't live anywhere around here, will never hear this podcast.
Okay.
No one knows who I'm talking about. I'll say that as a caveat.
Kevin Dixon.
Kevin Dixon. No. So this is a true story. He, good guy, he preached a sermon on divorce, and it was very hardline, traditional,
Sure.
kind of the traditional Christian.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Bad. And here's how bad it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then skip ahead a couple of years, and
divorced.
his adult
Oh.
child
Yeah.
got divorced.
Yeah.
And sure enough, within the year, the next sermon on divorce was a lot softer. And
That's
here's
right.
here's the reason I'm bringing this up is
Yeah.
because he was also the pastor who preached a whole sermon on don't let your circumstances dictate your beliefs. Stick to what is true.
Right.
Wow.
My point is, I'm
Yeah.
not calling him out as a hypocrite. I'm saying
No.
we all do that.
Yes.
Or we die. And what I mean by this is symbolically.
Yeah.
You either become more rigid
Yeah.
or you become more open and curious. And you think about what happens when somebody just gets in a situation where now he's got to love his daughter.
Yeah.
Or you've got to love your child who's doing X, Y, and Z. Or you've got to face you're either going to become more rigid.
Yeah.
And what a bad thing that looks like.
Yeah.
Or you're going to become more open and curious. And it doesn't mean you abandon everything. It doesn't mean you say everything's fair game, but it hopefully sets you in a way that you're starting to ask those questions about, can I really examine that?
Mm-hmm.
The thing I love about Journey, and I don't want to sound like Journey's hype man, but I think I love about where we are is the line trying to make the Bible weird again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is really the underpinning of that is let's be curious.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's not just approach it with all the things we've heard and does this fit, but can we be curious about what might be?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that for some people is very rattling and unsettling, and they're probably not going to stick.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen that.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
for sure.
And that's it. What I also love about it is holding it loosely. Like the church growth idea of like, we need to be growing people coming in by the droves.
Yep.
And what that gets you to is making sure you're not saying things that push people away, making sure you're developing all these programs that are sort of consumer friendly.
Yes.
This is what we're about.
Yeah.
Some people are going to get it and want it, and other people it's not.
Right.
There are many other fine churches.
Yeah. It'd
And
be
that's
difficult
okay.
to come to Journey and not be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I have one more question. Do we have time?
Yeah.
I'm good.
So
I'm good.
The last question is, so I think that's what we're trying to get to a place here, which is so refreshing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I could exist in other church communities now. We have visited some other churches when we've been traveling, and some of them have been very good. And we're like, yeah, it's not that that's a bad church.
Yep.
It's just I couldn't be there.
Yeah. I'm sure Ellen is like, can I ask a question?
Then they cart her out.
Started it all. Yeah, started it all.
There's no questions in church.
But what do you guys think it would really look like for our church as Journey, but also the bigger churches to be more genuinely curious? What is it? What is the practical outworking of that? You've already begun to say some of it, but what does it look like? Not just individually, but corporately.
Corporately? The church in general has to come to the conclusion that they don't have the corner on truth, and that there is a variety of ways to read and understand the Bible that enrich and develop a faith walk with God. And I do believe that there is a number of ways to go about that. I think Jesus is central to that, and I think if we could focus the church around Jesus and move away from some of the culture wars that we're engaged in, and move away from some of the just the political stuff, and move into just what you said a little while ago, Sam. Just how do we better just love our neighbors and get curious about that, rather than curious about how we can either A, convert them, or B, vilify them. And just point out what's wrong. I think those are the things. We talk about our church being center set. I'm just looking at the book that's sitting there, and how we have to continually and ongoingly battle creating fences, of which are barriers from people joining us, and also barriers for people leaving us. And I think that's the hard part. I think the hard part is we want to keep the people that agree with us, and we want to get rid of the people that don't.
Right.
And so if we can let go of some of our own idols, I think we would do better.
It's really good. Yeah. I think
I'm sorry.
I'm
overtalked that
No,
answer.
you didn't. It's great. I think
it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a formed answer for it.
Okay.
I guess I will say I'm curious about what that looks like.
Right.
It feels like it looks like that it naturally leads to more grace.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you're less rigid and certain and
Yeah.
all that, then
Yeah.
you don't have to feel like
Yeah. It's
When it's that receiving people open-handed
Yeah.
as they come and as they go, but also in their with our neighbors. If we go in without our ulterior motives of we got to get everybody saved, we got to blah 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 blah, whatever they are,
yeah.
and we just be
Yeah.
with people, man, there's so much beauty that happens in just being with people and the conversation. It's the beauty of the table that we do, you know?
Yeah. As I've gotten older, I often would, I wonder about when I was younger, I'd wonder about the phrase where Paul would say, I'm the chief of sinners, right? As I get older, I go, oh, I understand.
Yeah.
And if I see myself correctly, if I see myself and assess myself and go, I'm going into this situation, probably the biggest sinner in the room. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because grace then abounds.
Yeah.
Because if grace abounds to
I'm
me,
as bad as it gets in here,
yeah,
guys.
right.
So
Yeah,
like,
let's
do this. You guys are amazing.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a. It's the great equalizer.
Yes.
It's the great. It levels the playing field for everybody, and don't whatever you do, tell them you're a pastor. I've learned that.
I always tell them I'm a pastor.
What do you do? Detassel corn.
I tell them I'm a magician.
I work in human resources.
Yeah.
What's that? I don't know. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'll add one more thing that has come to mind as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And again, I'd love to continue to
That's
stick our heads
great.
in this about how this forms the church with a kind of spirit of curiosity and openness.
Yeah.
One of the things I think Journey does well that I think both promotes curiosity and is probably a result of is a focus and an openness to the arts, to music and other arts. I think there's something about that that it is virtually impossible to have a community that is embracing and celebrating and open to art that isn't open,
A curious
and
community.
curious.
Yeah.
It's by
Artists
its
are
nature,
curious.
right?
Yeah.
They have
Yep.
to be.
Yep.
True artists are curious.
They're
and
asking
people
those
that
questions.
appreciate art tend
Yes.
to be curious.
Yeah.
And I think just having that as part of the DNA is
Yeah.
something that really helps.
Yeah.
That's
That's
good.
good.
Word, Dave. That's a good word.
Really good.
Well, with that on our minds, journey on our minds. Thank you for joining us for one more episode. We are going to try and get some more shorts out.
That sounds weird, but
We're going to try and get more
Short
episodes out. That'll probably be in the next few weeks. But may you find yourself being curious today. If not, ask why. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey on My Mind. If you enjoyed it, please help us spread the word by leaving us a review and sharing it on your social media. Journey on My Mind is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III is the show's producer with technical assistance from Randy Hansen. Grant Opperman edits the show. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question, you can text us at 615-861-9503. And if you would like to talk to someone about spiritual or mental health issues, you can email our care pastor, Sam Barnhart, at sam@journeytn.com.